prime for several years, presenting programs at festivals and playing weddings, etc. So give her a big hand, Vicki Wheeler. We sort of comprise what is has been known for some time as the Matterhorn-Alphorn duo. So without further ado, we're going to play a typical Alphorn duet for you now. It's entitled the Engelberger Echo. It doesn't really have anything to do with an echo as such. It's just that we play loud, soft, loud, soft. So the Engelberger Echo. Sure gets warm in here, doesn't it? Or is that light shining on just us? The Alphorn starts its life as a tree, or I should say the old conventional Alphorn, such as we're playing. Later on, I'm sure what you all came for is to hear Roger Zanetti, or Zanette, play his new carbon fiber high-tech Alphorn. And we'll talk about that a little as we get there. But the old traditional Alphorns were made from one tree. The Alphorn maker had to trudge around the mountainside and find a tree that was curved to his liking, one that he thought he could carve the Alphorn from, the base of the tree becoming the bell of the Alphorn. He would cut it down at the very base, let it dry out for about a year, and then he would split it in half lengthwise, gouge out the two halves, and then he would glue those back together, so now he had a hollow tree. And today, Alphorn makers are making the bells out of big board type things, some from the same tree, some not. They all seem to work. The older Alphorns were in two pieces. We have an example of that later on. The new ones that Vicki and I are playing are in three pieces. Vicki's is, mine happens to be in four pieces. The Alphorn is then wrapped with cane. So what you see on the most part of the Alphorn is split cane wrapped around and glued on very tightly, because the hollowed out tree is very thin at this point. It's less than 1/4 of an inch thick, so it's very fragile, and the cane gives it a lot of strength. The bells are traditionally painted to give it a little beauty. Mine happens to be plain. Vicki's is not only painted, but it's also carved. I think you might all enjoy seeing that and feeling that when the program is over, especially you younger set up front here. So we're going to play another melody for you, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the Alphorn. And toward the end, if there are any things we haven't covered, we're open for questions. Hopefully we can come up with the answers.
There's water behind you. And what are we playing?
Yodel Ragen.
Okay. We work on tuning
Yeah.
these to do that.
Very important that the Alphorn be in tune, you see, and that was. I usually don't drink on the job, but
He's an Alphorn player. Yes.
we're doing a tune entitled Yodel Ragen, and it does sound like a very slow yodel, and Ragen is kind of a dance, so a yodel dance. The Alphorn is what we call a natural instrument. Are you ready for this, Vicki? Always put Vicki on the spot here. We're kind of a democratic duo. We share the responsibility. So what we're going to do with this is to demonstrate what we have to work with on the Alphorn. Being a natural instrument, that means we have no valves like a trumpet, no keys like a flute or a saxophone. Everything is done with the lips, like a big bugle. So on the Alphorn, there's sort of an unlimited number of notes that one could possibly play. Traditionally, there are about 13 notes used in most tunes. 16 notes are usually possible, and Vicki always makes this possible. So to share the responsibilities, I'm going to play the first 8 notes, and Vicki's going to play the second 8. Now I get the easy part. Notice two things when we do this. I'm going to start with a very low note, I hope. And it's, you have to be very quiet on some days. But notice that the notes we play, the lower ones are quite far apart. As I get higher, they're closer together. When Vicki takes over, actually she's playing a complete diatonic scale with one extra note thrown in, no extra charge. And a couple of notes that we're going to play are going to be out of tune. That's the other thing to notice. If you count from the bottom up, notice number 7, 11, and 13 are kind of out of tune, but we use them anyway, especially the 7th and 11th, the 11th being called the Alphorn Fa. It's actually a note between F and F sharp. So here we go. Vicki forgot what we're doing, but she'll catch on once I start, I hope. We have to hurry, I guess. No, we're going to play a little bit more, and then we're going to do some trios. Tell you a little more about the Alphorn. Originally, the Alphorn was used as a signal instrument. The old Alphorns were much shorter than the ones we have today. Usually the farmer or the shepherd would make his own out of a branch, a tree branch that he would find laying around. He'd cut it in half, hollow it, maybe not even glue it back together, but wrap it with some straw or whatever he could find laying around. And then he would use it to signal from one mountaintop or one farm to another. Farmer Brown might have a particular call, like 2 long blasts, for example, that when the doctor in the neighboring village heard these 2 long blasts, he knew that he was supposed to go up to Farmer Brown's house because maybe Brown's wife was ill. It saved Brown a trip downtown. The time could have been the difference between life and death. Schmid, on the other hand, might have another call, 3 long blasts. When the doctor heard that, he knew he had to go to Farmer Schmid's house. Brown might have a call that didn't mean anything to the doctor, but when Schmid heard this, he knew he had to come over and help Brown with the cows. Schmid might have a call for Brown. You know, when Brown heard this, he knew that his mother-in-law was on the way or something. You know. So it was strictly a signal instrument. Later, I think the shepherds took the Alphorn out to the pastures with them to pass the time of day. An interesting thing they found was that the sound of the Alphorn, especially in the lower range, would have a soothing effect on the animals, and they wouldn't wander away. And I've experienced this. My daughter raised Scottish Highlander cattle, and I would take my Alphorn down to her farm, not a cow in sight, and I'd start playing. All 41 cows would come around and just stare at the horn. After a while, they'd had enough, and they'd wander off again. But they were a good audience, too. For a while. You guys are sitting still very patiently. Don't wander. Vicki says we better play. So, Alpen vegan lead. We're going to play one of the prettiest Alphorn melodies I know, done up in a little duet style. It's entitled Alpen Vegan Lied. Translated, of course, that's Alpine Lullaby.
Keep going if I start to make it.
Thank you very much. Many composers have been inspired by the Alphorn. Leopold Mozart, the father of the famous Wolfgang, actually wrote a concerto for Alphorn, the shorter version Alphorn, and strings. Other composers have kind of referred to their melodies in their works. Richard Strauss wrote an Alpine symphony. There are Alphorn tunes in there. Brahms heard a tune when he was very young. Later he used it in the finale of his first symphony. So a very long and colorful history. And we're going to play one more tune, and then we're going to kind of get a trio together and show you what three Alphorns sound like. In the town of Bern, Switzerland, there are bear pits, actually, and big pits you can gather around, and you throw treats to the bears, and they do tricks for you. Actually, they're getting very old now. They don't do too many tricks anymore, but I've seen them a couple of times. They're pretty old the last time, right? But we have a tune entitled The Berner Bar, and that means the bears of Bern. So here we go with the Berner Bar. Thank you very much. Now I've got to work. I've put on my glasses, so I can't fake it anymore. We've added a new member, Steve Eklund. Let's give Steve a warm round of applause.